You can download both of those baseline testing weeks that's starting Monday. What's the date on
April
that?
5th.
The 5th, Monday, April 5th. So pretty shortly after you're listening to this podcast. Download, check out those 2 weeks. Obviously, great time to get on board as far as like, hey, let's do some fun benchmark testing weeks. But if you like what you see, give yourself a week or so to get on board before that April 19th mark with the baseline training phase 1. That's when that first official training phase starts. So teammisfit.com, see the next 2 weeks of programming for free. SugarWad Marketplace, you can start a free 14-day trial.
Chill.
And if you play your cards right, that's basically a 3-week trial because we publish the workouts for the following week on Thursdays. So like you get the first 2 weeks right away, and then the next week when I publish the next, it might even actually be like 4 weeks if you're.
Damn, how many weeks you giving away?
I don't know. I shouldn't have said that. I'm about to get fired, but. What's going on, everyone? Hunter and Sherb from Team Misfit here, bringing you guys our first podcast of the 2021 kind of full training season.
Brand spanking new season.
Brand spanking new season. We just wrapped up our kind of partner week that kind of bridged the gap between the end of the Open, and you've got hopefully some athletes who are getting ready to go onto those quarterfinals in this coming week, which is super exciting. And congratulations to all of you affiliate athletes out there who are going to be tackling those workouts. It sounds like a good time, and we now know some details about how that's going to go down. And then, like I said, we just wrapped up kind of a partner week. So this coming week and our next week, we're going to just jump right into things. It's called our baseline testing weeks. So what we've got here is 2 weeks that are not normally. After these weeks, we will get back to our kind of traditional phase structure with test and retest weeks at the beginning and end. But these 2 weeks are not actually going to be retested in the immediate future. We don't have those scheduled to be retested. These are instead some old, maybe some CrossFit benchmarks that athletes have done. We've got a couple of Misfit benchmarks, including a kind of home cooked one that we tested about 312 times.
Just a few times.
So we've got some old benchmarks, some of the newer benchmarks that CrossFit has released over the past couple weeks, and then some good old traditional tests of fitness, whether it's the monostructural stuff or some more, maybe 1 rep maxes and stuff like that. And I think this is a good like opportunity to talk about kind of the importance of these sorts of tests, because we talk all the time about the test and retest model, which is typically separated by 5 to 7 training weeks, whereas this baseline testing week, these 2 baseline testing weeks, these serve to benchmark athletes' fitness over a much longer period of time.
Yeah, the way I like to think of the baseline testing week is, you have the opportunity for athletes to see kind of where they are against the entire community of CrossFitters, because while each gym probably has their own unique benchmarks or things they type to train for and test, there are the Frans of the world, the CrossFit Totals, the 100-calorie assault bike type of things where, athletes essentially know what they're getting into, but maybe don't get to test this all that often, and they want to essentially like benchmark their fitness. And I always joke when someone's new at the gym, kind of explaining what like Fran is when you have a brand new person off the street. It's like the CrossFit equivalent of like, how much do you bench, dude? Like It's hey, I want to know where I'm at with my fitness, and that will help give your coaches effectively context for how to effectively scale athletes moving forward, because some of these tests just don't pop up super frequent in our program, and it's not because they're not good tests. It's just that you pay for our programming, so we want to give you something that's a little bit new and unique. So we don't always check in with the Frans and the 1 rep max deadlifts and things like that. We test things that we think are a little bit better metrics of fitness, but that doesn't mean these aren't good tests as well. So it's kind of a fun throwback to traditional CrossFit back in the day.
Yeah, and again, we're here to we provide you guys with the test retest at the beginning and end of phase to help your athletes see that, because a lot of times, like if you don't do Fran for 3 years and you're expected to be like, hey, we're shooting for Fran 3 years from now, it's like training for the Olympics, or your
fell
event
asleep,
is
sorry.
every 4 years. Like, yeah, sorry, I got bored. But the shorter term test and retest helps kind of keep that engagement and keep like, oh wow, I did PR this, I did get better with just a few weeks of a little bit more focus on this component, I got better at this. But a lot of times that doesn't necessarily move the needle in your total fitness as much as showing these benchmarks, these bigger workouts, like that you said, the CrossFit community knows, like it's the common language that we speak when it comes to, not even performance, but just, measuring ourselves against other athletes. Because at the end of the day, no, most people didn't do, pennies, an old Misfit benchmark or Misfit Athletics benchmark or any of the ones that we've come up with, but pretty much everybody's done Fran.
Yeah, to me, I like to think of it again. When you go to another gym, you're gonna stop in. Potentially, your members are gonna be like, "Hey, I've gone to this other gym and I traveled and they had a workout that was similar to Fran or similar to CrossFit Total, and they asked me, what's your Fran time? And if your gym's not doing Fran somewhat regularly, you have no idea. So, we talk about having a phase where we have test and retest. We really do believe that we should have evidence-based fitness. We should see people get fitter over a long timeline. And while we have the nice proof of concept that test and retest model works over a 7-week timeline, like you said earlier, we are also aiming for that low trajectory over long distance. We want to make sure that athletes are continually progressing. And this check-in is a great way to have athletes get really excited about their fitness, or as a chance to them to be like, all right, I did awesome on bench press, but my Fran wasn't so good. And it's like, all right, we need to steer your training or tailor your training in a very specific way, because your members come to you for your expertise, how you can help them be fitter. And this baseline testing week is a really great way to be like, all right, you have proficiency in these domains, maybe some, lack of proficiency in these domains. If you're looking to do something extra in open gym or when we're scaling workouts, it helps provide that context. Hey, you really like to lift heavy, but you don't like to go fast? Well, guess what? We're going to scale a bunch of stuff back so you can really hammer these workouts and really improve that conditioning. And this is, a great opportunity to kind of see where you're at so you can move forward.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we do think that we kind of put together a pretty well-rounded set of baseline tests that are allowing athletes, I'm really good at monostructural stuff, I'm going to hammer this, but maybe not so much when it comes to we've got some gymnastics elements, or I'm really, really strong, but I don't like to go fast. Great place to start the conversation with your athlete as to where they want to see improvement, regardless of whether it's kind of performance-based or not. At the end of the day, when we increase people's fitness, their ability to do a lot of different tasks, we're not only increasing their fitness, but their health as well.
I'll say you chase performance, you're going to chase health. There aren't very many things. I mean, Don't get me wrong. You probably heard or seen things on the morning chalk up or whatnot. Is the athlete's diet sustainable for long term? And people talking about carbs and fat, all that stuff. Regardless, if someone is pursuing fitness and pursuing better, they are going to be healthier. Absolutely. So we talk about that continuum of sickness, wellness, and fitness. We are trying to constantly march someone in the direction of fitness. Depending on your lifestyle and how hard you train, all the things you do outside of the gym, you'll get there faster or slower. But it's our job to always be kind of directing someone in that general direction of here's how we move the needle on what you need to work on.
Absolutely. And then just the last thing I want to really briefly talk about on these baseline testing weeks before we roll into the baseline training phase 1 is that you talked a little bit about scaling. This is one of those times when you're thinking about, when we're using benchmarks, we kind of think of these as almost like in the realm of an open workout, where it's like, hey, now's the time to test yourself. If you have the capacity or the capability to do these movements at this volume and at this weight safely and within, a reasonable, within reason as far as what stimulus we're after, we should be allowing our athletes to do that with kind of their future in mind. And what I mean by that is, if you have a raw beginner and you say, hey, we're going to do 95, 65 pound thrusters and pull-ups, and we know that, let's say they're so new that a year down the road, that still might be out of reach. That's not helpful to them. We want something that challenges them today, but they would also probably repeat, or in training have a reference point for, hey, in Fran, I use 75 pounds for the thrusters. Therefore, a lot of these class workouts, when thrusters come up at 95 pounds, 75 is my weight. So you as the coach have to be thinking, okay, what's this athlete's current capacity? And are they getting real fit real fast? Okay, let's let them maybe struggle a little bit through Fran, because even 6 months down the road, they're going to be able to crush this thing. Contrarily, in my first example, hey, we're still a few iterations away from kind of RX. You need to keep that in mind to keep kind of the athlete buy-in.
Yeah, and I think as the coach, you have the experience, and if you're anything like Hunter or I, you probably started doing CrossFit.com, or maybe you went to an affiliate and they were like, that's the RX, go do it. And there wasn't a lot of high-level coaching there. And our job is to provide the context. So one thing you'll see in all your training sheets for the coaches is that you'll see a target time or target stimulus, which should give you that window, that give you that round score, give you the idea of how this should go for an athlete. And if there's a reasonable chance they can be in that window, let them take a swing. At the same time, if you say, hey, we're going to do Fran, but it's going to take them 18 minutes, that's on you. That's not on the athlete.
Sure.
Now, you're always, not always, but sometimes you'll get pushback from an athlete. But if you come from the spirit of, I'm trying to make you a fitter human being, and you can kind of help them see the breadcrumbs on the trail, they're more likely to buy in, be willing to take your advice, do it at a modified weight, and then know that next time, if things go well on this test, that you're going to give them the chance, or give them basically proving to you by doing it themselves that there's the opportunity to work towards an RX. And I really do think that's both safe and effective training, and it gets someone excited about it versus, being that one person in class who's like, all right, go ahead, do Fran, see what happens. And they're 13 minutes in, everyone finished 7 minutes ago, and they're in that circle, people joke sometimes like the circle of shame if you're like competing, but it's not necessarily that in an affiliate. We're trying to encourage someone to finish, but to give someone a good experience, you don't want to have that one athlete who's hanging back 5 or 6 minutes after the pack or getting half the rounds, because no one wants to be that athlete saying their time in front of the class.
Not fun for anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's our job. We want to make sure that we give people, as important as to keep them safe and make sure they do like some cool shit in the gym. Number one job is to give them a good, safe workout. And that's what matters most.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to measure progress. It doesn't need to be, hey, you're going to do this time and the exact same thing, but faster next time. Like, we don't need to get into it, but there's a lot of ways to measure progress for your athletes. In baseline training, the baseline testing week, our second week, there is going to be a CrossFit total in which the 1 rep max back squat portion is going to serve as the test lift, the 1 rep max back squat for baseline training phase 1, which starts on April 19th. So kind of with that, we'll segue into that test week. So again, the week of April 19th now, that is going to be your actual test week that will be retested 7 weeks later for baseline training phase 1. And we're pretty excited about this. We've got a few good tests. We're going to focus one on the back squat. So kind of building the base, the idea, the baseline terminology kind of came from like a back to basics sort of mentality, but I didn't really like that term. So we went with something.
Sounds
a
like silver
different.
sneakers.
Yeah. No offense. But, anyway, so we're building that raw squatting strength with the goal of PRing our 1 rep max back squat. So that's our high central nervous system demand, or CNS lift. We'll also be working through some strict pull-ups, strict and kipping pull-ups, just making sure that we're getting a blend of both. And then we've got a couple conditioning tests. So we'll kind of go through each of those little segments one by one here. We'll start with the squat, which I think we're both really excited about, just because we've tested we've had a few class sessions with this style, this post-activation potentiation style of squatting, and it's worked super well for our athletes.
Yeah, we've done it with both squatting and deadlifting, and one of the things that we talk about, at the end of the day, our job is to make a fitter, healthier human being, and for a lot of our athletes, they come to us with varying backgrounds. You have the endurance community who found CrossFit. You have the, old, hey, I played football or baseball or basketball on a community. And then you have people who just maybe never worked out before. And with all of those different types of people, you don't know if that person's going to struggle lifting really, really heavy weight for one single rep, or they're going to really, really love it. Or they're going to be someone who, give me 100 reps, but don't make me do one. Right. And we have those athletes who are what we call fast twitch, who really like the 1 rep maxes. And we have the athletes who are slow twitch, who like the, hey, give me 100 reps. Yeah. Like, I'll do me 100 back squats at this weight, but don't make me add 1 pound to it. So with these two communities, you have, people who are trying to be stronger and healthier. And when you have an athlete who's slow twitch, they're going to stand up their squat at the same speed every single time. But if you can have them do something explosive, they can start to develop some of that fast twitch muscle fiber, and at the same time prime themselves to lift heavier weights than they're used to. So we kind of like hit two birds with one stone. We have athletes who are maybe a little bit slower, get more explosive. And then we have athletes who are already explosive be even further explosive. So for us, it's really interesting that, you know, if you mix something that dynamic and something that's very aggressive and fast, like a bike sprint or tossing a medicine ball as high as you can, or a few other things that we're going to mix in this next phase, you're going to have athletes get stronger, and they're not going to be doing an insane amount of squatting volume. We're not going to ask you to squat 2-3 days a week. It's just going to be, you know, 1 day per week and following it up with a little bit of PAP, and you're going to see athletes PR. And one of the things we joked about is, I think before one of these other podcasts, is that we like to compete as a coaching staff here to see who can get the most PRs in class. Yeah. And that we really found that PAP, all of a sudden it's like PR, and we're in the middle of a phase. How are these happening? Yeah. It's because athletes are priming themselves to lift some heavy weights.
Yeah, when we first did this, it was the middle of like kind of the front half of the open phase, or maybe prior to that. And it was just, the back squat was kind of GPP. It was just thrown in, not randomly, but we weren't
sprinkled in.
We weren't trying to PR anybody's back squat. And we had them do some box jumps afterward. And all of a sudden I got one athlete who's spending 15 minutes after class because he didn't expect to get so heavy. But I was like, hey man, you only get one of these every
stars are shining out there.
3 new moons when you can see Jupiter from your back porch. And sure as hell, he had a massive PR. So the post-activation potentiation, if you're not familiar with that, is basically we're going to lift something really, really heavy, and then we're going to follow it up with something really, really explosive. Now, depending on where you look on the internet, if you're going to follow up my post-activation potentiation talk with some research, you'll see that there's a few different ways to do it. A lot of places will recommend, hey, I'm going to do this heavy thing, and then you need to rest from anywhere from 1 to upwards of like 10 minutes before you do that really explosive thing. We kind of CrossFitified it a little bit, because it is, I think it's proven to work. So regardless of what the current science on post-activation potentiation says, the version that we're doing, whether you can call it that or not, we've seen it work pretty well. And the second thing is, you guys have an hour. It's an hour-long class. This is going to be the lift-only day, is the back squat. So with given a solid 15 to 20-minute warm-up plus some time to build up to the starting weight, then following it up with, you're going to want that 30 to 40 minutes to execute this really heavy, really demanding session, with adequate rest between those sets. So like you said, you're basically, for the listeners, what you guys are looking at is around seven working sets. And what's cool is that we're also kind of blending a GPP style of lifting, but with kind of still the percentage, the traditional strength work kind of in mind. So we'll give you a starting percentage where we want, hey, the first set of 5 is going to be at 70% of your 1 rep max. After that, we want you to add weight and go as however you feel. Like, let the athlete go based on how they're feeling, obviously with safety in mind. But if they're feeling good on that day, like, let the horse out of the barn.
And I think it's really important to maybe acknowledge one feature of our programming that you don't see a ton of when it comes to like the high CNS stuff or a lot of our lifting. We don't see a lot of percentages in terms of like, hey, do 5x5 all at 70% or 70%, 72, 75. And the reason being is you're going to have a population of athletes that come to your gym from all walks of life, people who take it super seriously, all the way down to like, hey, I like exercise and this place is kind of cool and I like the shiny object over there. So like, I'm coming to your gym. So it's nice to kind of give you a reference point, but like this is an opportunity for athletes to kind of figure stuff out for themselves. And one of what's most exciting for me is with an athlete is when they start to buy in and they start to see these lifting sessions, these conditioning sessions kind of play out in a certain way. And they get excited about, hey, like last week I could barely do my second set of 5 in my weight. Today I did it, super easy. And you have these opportunities to talk to athletes about, hey, that felt good. Like, what was different about today? And maybe they slept a little bit longer, had less stress at work, or ate better the last couple of weeks. Like, those are opportunities to remind people that the other 23 hours outside of the gym really matter. And that's, again, just proof of concept that if you do have a level of care, that you can improve on this stuff. And even if you aren't someone who's super into it, you have like a rough idea of where to start them.
Yeah. And what's cool too is that if we give them that starting point, but also say like, hey, go until the wheels fall off or just short of that. We obviously don't want every day to be like, oh, I only got 2 working sets and then I started failing. Like, we're trying to save that until that very last set or so. But again, if you have an athlete who maybe they don't know their 1 rep max, or 2, it's just like you said, the stars have aligned. I'm feeling great. I slept well. We can reverse engineer why you're feeling good, but we don't want to restrict athletes from, on the days that they do feel good, like we said, let them
Ride the
get
lightning.
heavy, ride the lightning. Absolutely. So we'll include both starting points and kind of the goal of the session, where athletes in the first week, for example, it says the goal is to end at a heavy double or even a new 2-rep max. And what's also cool about this is that we are going to continue or restart kind of that rotating lifting schedule. So for example, the first week, that squat session's on a Tuesday. The second week, it's on a Wednesday. And we realize athletes they're not going to be able to attend every single squat day throughout the phase just because of life.
Yeah.
But what's cool is that as long as we give them that starting point and allow them to build as heavy as they can, your odds are you're giving them multiple opportunities to get really, really heavy, get the correct stimulus, and then hopefully maybe, PR, whether it's a heavy set of 3, 2, 1, whatever.
Yeah, and I think, kind of balancing out the high CNS lift, the other test that you're going to see is a gymnastics test in the upcoming baseline testing phase 1 is our strict pull-up, 3 max sets for strict pull-ups with a little bit of rest in between is something we did back in December. So, talking about 3 months ago. So you have an opportunity to talk to your athletes. If you guys track your workouts, hey, look back on December X, figure out what that number is and, aim to maybe add 1 rep per set or 1 rep overall. And again, gives you an opportunity to talk to an athlete like, hey, I didn't get any better at this, or maybe I got worse. All right, what's your life been like since around Christmas time, New Year's, all those holidays that come in the early winter? Maybe you fell off the wagon with your diet, and this is an opportunity for you to have that conversation with an athlete who's really invested in getting better, but maybe not connecting the dots, again, outside of the gym that would allow them to progress, because we don't necessarily just want an athlete who's super strong or great on machines or can swing a kettlebell for 5,000 reps. We want to balance across everything. And for us, we want to emphasize that with a gymnastics test. And sometimes, unfortunately, you need that little smack on the nose to be like, all right, I got to take some more time. I got to think about how I'm eating. I got to think about my lifestyle stuff because I want to excel at every part of class, not just certain days of the week.
Yeah, the nice kind of juxtaposition of, okay, let's squat really heavy, but now you need to be able to pull your chin and your body weight up over that bar. And that is absolutely, it's all of this stuff is about how you frame it to the athlete. It's not so much as like, hey, if you can't do strict pull-ups, grab a band. That, yes, that is maybe the in-class version of that conversation, but outside of class, it's like, how many times have you had an athlete who says like, hey, I want to get my first toes to bar. I want to get my first kipping pull-up. And you and I know as coaches know that that's like, yes, there's a mechanics thing. Yes, there's a strength thing involved, but a lot of times these athletes we are either carrying around a little bit of extra body weight and stuff like that. And those conversations are really difficult to have with an athlete. But when we put this kind of in perspective and show that, hey, at the end of the day, the only reason you want to have that conversation as a coach is because you care about this athlete's health and their fitness. And by saying, hey, you can squat a house, we just need to apply the same level of dedication to improving your back squat as we do to the lifestyle factors that are going to enable you to move your body weight as effectively as you can move an external object.
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of said something that I want to gloss on more so for the Hatchet Extra, which I know is jumping ahead in the podcast a bit, but you're going to notice that some of the Hatchet Extra pieces have monostructural work, and you're going to people come to your gym who are like, really? We're going to run 6 400s? I could do this at home. And going back to what you just said a second ago, how you frame it and how you tell them how that's going to make them fitter matters completely. And if your coaches don't buy into that stuff or aren't as excited about getting someone over the pull-up bar for their first chin over bar pull-up as they are PR in their snatch at 155 pounds, we have to have a conversation with your coaching staff because they take from your energy. If your energy is not upbeat and positive and, hey, we're going to hit this, even if you know that person coming in has no prayer of doing their first strict pull-up that day, you give them the working steps, you give them the same amount of excitement, and that's how you build that community and culture of positivity, because that's what's infectious. When you're excited about something and you're jazzed up about it, even when someone maybe is not, and you find a way to redirect that energy from gloom and doom, I can't do these, to, all right, I got something to work on, that energy is super impactful, and that's going to, it matters in the gymnastics test, it matters in monostructural, it matters for everything that you execute, even going down to how you guys take care of your bathrooms at your gym. All of those things matter. Positivity goes a long way, especially when it comes to delivering, some of those workouts that the athletes know, I'd have to do that today.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The mindset, just kind of creating that atmosphere that no matter what's up on the whiteboard, this is going to be
Let's go get it.
A good time, and it's going to benefit me for reason XYZ is massive. So, yeah, that's our gymnastics work. The test is going to be that strict pull-up, and hopefully we can improve some athletes' body weight fitness as we go through the phase. But so This is kind of baseline training phase 1. So you're going to find that throughout the weeks of the phase, you're gonna see some kind of old school, not old school, I don't really even know, like kind of just raw conditioning work, things like running repeats, whether it's short, medium, or long distances, or super aggressive sprints on the pavement, on the bike, on the rower, just building that engine, because our two conditioning tests, our Metcon and interval tests, are very much about how fast can you go. There's no in neither of these tests is there a skill limitation of any sort, barring like an injury or kind of an extenuating circumstance. Our conditioning test is running and dumbbell snatches, something that is extremely accessible, and is just going to allow the fittest athletes. Man, I'm sorry if you're fit, you're going to have to go really, really fast. Others, it's a great opportunity to talk about the importance of that, that metabolic conditioning and why that is still at the base, just above the nutrition in that pyramid.
Well, it's funny, we just had a session at our gym here that involved, hey, tell us about your least favorite open workout, and everybody really led it into 17.1/21.2, the burpee box jumps and dumbbell snatches, and to me that's like an aha moment. It's like, oh, when it's like greasy, fast, aggressive speed and just discomfort. I don't want to do that anymore.
You don't like to go.
Well, if there's one way to really move the needle on your fitness, it's just putting your head down and trying as hard as you can and seeing what happens on the other side of it. So, that's what I really love about both of our Metcon tests and our interval tests, is they're both just about how hard are you willing to work?
Yep.
And, maybe you don't get the score you get on week 1. Gives you an opportunity to be like, all right, like maybe I should scale a couple of these workouts or modify these workouts so I can feel the same way I felt in testing week, so that when I go back there in 6 weeks from now, I don't, hang my head being like, oh, I didn't get any better. Yep. And that to me is just an opportunity to talk to your athletes. We give you those target scores for both of those. Think about those. And when an athlete finishes the workout, if they come over to you and you can tell they're a little disheveled, disgruntled from their workout, it's like, all right, next time I ask you to scale something or I ask you to do this instead of that, it's because I have your fitness in mind, and I don't want you to come back here to me 6 weeks from now being like, I feel the same way I felt 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. So that's our conditioning test. Like I said, running and snatches. You gotta subscribe or download the program to see what that gym looks like. It is named Cardio B, though. I'm pretty excited about the name that I came up with. Our interval test, a Sherby special.
Wall balls and prayers.
Oh man, that's just going to be a hoot. But again, similar. How hard do you want to work, or what is your work capacity like? No massive barrier to entry here on a bike and a wall ball.
Nowhere to hide.
That's it. Nowhere to hide.
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to think of this piece, and especially with intervals, we're trying to get athletes to reach past their capacity. So when you look at this workout and you go to deliver it to your classes, you'd be like, I know if this were, 20 minutes straight through, you wouldn't go at this pace, but you got that little carrot dangling at the end of the stick. That is how we move the needle
when you have a rest period.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how you should approach this. And, when you see an interval from us, that should be, without saying a blanket statement, that should be generally how you describe this is, hey, you see what's in front of you. You see you get that little carrot on the stick, that little rest there, push to get there. And then for this test, would probably go in the opposite direction most people want to go in when they start with a longer round and it kind of gets shorter and shorter because they're tired and more tired. We're going to go the exact opposite. So, as the working window gets a little bit longer, your goal is to try to push your athletes to get that same score. And I got a feeling that the assault bike and the wall ball will do it very nicely.
It will be effective, that's for sure. So that's what we got to look forward to. Just really quickly, as far as the competitor extra stuff, we'll go over kind of the other lifts. So we said the high central nervous system lift, the back squat, that's where we're going to get really, really strong. Our gymnastics, we're going to focus on the pull-ups. A skill component that you're going to see pretty much every week is a split jerk, more often than not. And you can definitely I would use 21.4 if your athletes did that as a great example of like, hey, if you were able to pick that bar up, one in an efficient manner to get that clean, address how difficult that jerk was. And more often than not, it's not a strength thing. We almost never see an athlete not be able to put the bar high enough, but it's almost always a coordination thing with the footwork and the timing and that sort of thing. So we're going to try to hammer that. And then also just address some other, just kind of our GPP lifting is going to be a combination of thrusters and kettlebell swings every kind of other week or so, depending on the day. Some days you won't, or some weeks you won't see it, but others you will. And then our competitor extra, because we're not going to hit it directly. We'll still obviously do it in our conditioning pieces. You're going to see some squat snatching of a whole slew of varying reps and loadings and stuff like that. And then we've also got quite a few gems. So if you are if you're somebody listening to this, you're familiar with the Misfit Athletics stuff. Maybe you're a hatchet athlete, or your coaching staff is the folks who really like to tackle that competitor extra. Maybe you have a few folks at the gym who like to jump along. We got some beefcakes in there.
Yeah, we say often on our Misfit Athletics podcast that like one of the things that we see derail athletes the most is mixing and matching programs or jumping around between programs and not just kind of staying the course for a long period of time. And what we don't want to do with Team Misfit is fracture community. If you have people who at your gym love to do Misfit programming, this is Misfit programming. And for a lot of us, especially Misfit Gym Portland, our HQ gym, we see athletes do these exact same pieces every single time. Yeah. And our gym had 15 qualifiers between the two locations. And that's people who are coming to the hour model and have dealt with COVID for the last, year and a half, like you all have.
Currently
and they
still
aren't
wearing masks.
And they aren't doing anything extra outside of what we deliver here in class. So if you're having an athlete who's like, you know what, that's cool and all, class is fine, but I'll be over in the corner doing my competitor stuff. Like, I'm here to tell you that we have proof of concept at our facility that they're some of the fittest human beings on earth. Do this and do nothing else.
Yeah, we get oftentimes like coaches or maybe interested in the programming. Hey, I've got a lot of coaches who follow Misfit Athletics. We want to get it into our affiliate. Again, our overall goal was to make sure that you coaches out there who maybe have the time, the access to the gym, or and then have athletes who are interested in challenging themselves maybe just a touch more than in that 1 hour class, or just adding an extra training piece, that you have that through Team Misfit. And all of this entire program is written within itself, meaning that the competitor extra pieces, we are looking at the entire training day saying, okay, if I'm a religious follower of the strength and skill work, the class conditioning, and the competitor extra piece, does this day flow? Does this make sense? Am I gonna, you're not gonna be duplicating movements. You're not gonna, it's not a separate program. This is all one program for the athlete who is an affiliate, kind of affiliate plus level. I did well in the open. I want to see how well I stack up in quarterfinals. This is your piece. It's not necessary to go to Misfit Athletics and pull, or go to Instagram and pull a different workout. This is your piece. And like you said, we have it. We just literally finished a camp of 16 athletes who are I want to, this is the program I do. I want to get ready for quarterfinals.
Yeah, you just don't know when you pull stuff like that off program, if it's going to interfere or what's going to lead to. I mean, it might work great for one day, but the next day then you're like, oh shit, I already did all those things.
I just did muscle ups.
So you don't have that forethought. These programs are all meant to kind of live on their own. And yes, they take inspiration from one another, but I don't want to toot your horn for, but you finish in the top 1,000 in the entire world and you don't do anything more than this. And some days you don't even do the extra. You just do class. I mean, you're someone who takes class 4 to 5 days a week at most. And that's proof of concept right there that if you come in, you work really, really hard. Yes, some days it might be nice to have an extra piece, but it's really more about how hard you're willing to work and the effort and intensity you put into your training, more so than all right, did I do 17 pegboards last month, and now when they come up in the, whatever, am I ready for them? At the end of the day, it's about teaching athletes that our sport is about, being very well-rounded and working on your conditioning. And, Team Misfit has a very heavy dose of both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all again, all the programs were all written by the same people. It's just, we have to modify this because you have a 1 hour class. You don't have enough C2 bike ergs for everybody, or sandbags, or these weird objects that we expect our individual athletes. This is it's all written by the same three individuals that provide you with the games training that we give our high level athletes. So, just a little caveat there, but I think that's it.
I'm excited to see it. I mean, it's one of the things that, we want you to know is that we run this exact same program at our two facilities here. We're just as excited as you are to see what happens and to give athletes, that opportunity to benchmark their fitness, figure out where they want to go long-term. And then again, give them the opportunity to find a test, train it for 6 weeks, and then do it again. Because again, we want you to be as excited about delivering this to them as them doing the workouts. And the more you know about it, the more you're confident with your delivery, the better it's going to go. So we're excited to see it.
It's got to be that buy-in. So that being said, you can head to teammisfit.com. We published a blog post not that long ago with all kinds of written information, basically the stuff that we just talked about the baseline testing weeks, about baseline training phase 1, and you can download both of those baseline testing weeks that's starting Monday. What's the date on that?
5th.
The 5th, Monday, April 5th. So pretty shortly after you're listening to this podcast. Download, check out those 2 weeks. Obviously, great time to get on board as far as like, hey, let's do some fun benchmark testing weeks. But if you like what you see, give yourself a week or so to get on board before that April 19th mark with the baseline training phase 1. That's when that first official training phase starts. So teammisfit.com, see the next 2 weeks of programming for free. SugarWad Marketplace, you can start a free 14-day trial.
Sure.
And if you play your cards right, that's basically a 3-week trial because we publish the workouts for the following week on Thursdays. So like you get the first 2 weeks right away. And then the next week when I publish the next, it might even actually be like 4 weeks if you're
how many weeks you giving away?
I don't know. I shouldn't have said that. I'm about to get fired, but lots of opportunities to see the programming. Email us, slide into the DMs, the @TeamMisfitGyms on Instagram, @MFSherb, @HunterShould. Ask us any questions you want about the program. We like firmly believe in it. We've been writing this stuff for a long time, and this is by far our best iteration of the program that we've had for our affiliates. And we like things are going great. People really, really seem to enjoy it.
I'm fired up. I can't wait to see how, all you make sure you guys tag us on @TeamMisfitGyms. We're definitely looking out for you guys.
Yeah, I want to see those back squat PRs and the strict pull-up PRs, please.
Cheers.
Both of those. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
See ya.